Welcome to Catalytic Leadership, the podcast designed to help leaders intentionally grow and thrive. Here is your host, author, and leadership and executive coach, Dr. William Attaway.
Hey, it's William, and welcome to today's episode of the Catalytic Leadership podcast. Each week, we tackle a topic related to the field of leadership. My goal is to ensure that you have actionable steps you can take from each episode to grow in your own leadership. Growth doesn't just happen. My goal is to help you become intentional about it. Each week, we spotlight leaders from a variety of fields, organizations, and locations. And my goal is for you to see that leaders can be catalytic no matter where they are or what they lead. I draw inspiration from the stories and journeys of these leaders, and I hear from many of you that you do too. Let's jump into today's interview. I'm so excited today to have Josh Parish on the podcast. Josh is the CEO of GetUpGang.com. He's a personal development advisor, a lifelong student leader and salesman, a 20-year health and fitness coach, and in the last 3 years, he sold over $35 million in real estate. He is a strategist and a builder of leaders, and I'm so excited you're here, Josh. Thanks for being on the show.
Hey, man, thank you for having me. I feel blessed that we've connected.
Me as well. I would love for you to start by sharing a little bit of your story with our listeners, particularly around your journey and your development as a leader. How did you get started?
The baseball diamond, that was my first area, I would say, of leadership. Now, I started baseball when I was 6 years old. And really and truly, I guess sales and baseball started about the same time for me. Because I was selling watermelons out the back of a truck, and you'd have to guide people to the sale, right? And then on the baseball field, even though at 5 and 6 years old, I was still learning the game, but if you were in tune to the game, you'd understand composure and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and as I aged on the baseball diamond, instead of it going from, we're just having fun. Well, now we're leading young men, right? So I just always took it as a role, and my coaches always say, Josh, you got to have fun. But I always strive to be the crazy man on the field and played my absolute hardest, threw my body around, and I wanted to lead by example. And whenever I was in that character, I would notice that my energy would rub off on others, and they too would be high energy and throw their bodies around, and they would be pumped up. So that was my first experience with leadership, and the baseball diamond is the place all athletics for the most part, team sports is a great place to learn leadership.
So based on your experiences and based on what I read earlier, you've had quite a few. How would you define leadership?
Well, one, a good leader is going to lead by example. They're not going to ask their people that they're leading. They're not going to ask them to do anything that they're not willing to do themselves or that they haven't already done to infinity. So that's the first part. And then a good leader is going to explain in detail what needs to be done, I would say. Yeah. Because I've had leaders that would just say, go get it done. Like, this is what you need to do, go get it done. And it was like my second day on the job. And it's like, well, I don't even know what I'm doing here. And they're like, just go get it done. And I understand like why people just say, go figure it out, because you do need to get your bumps and bruises and things of that nature. But God, that no details behind, just go do it. That's a rough way to go about it. And I guess I could talk about all the bad leadership items than the good leadership tactics. But yeah, good leaders are going to lead from the front, ask people about their experience and maybe how things could be better, and just give details to infinity, just because people need to know what and why they're doing it.
Yeah, I've heard you say that mindset is the foundation of every achieved goal. You and I share that. Mindset is really the critical foundation block. Why does that matter so much to you? Why does a healthy mindset seem like something that you believe every leader is not just a nice to have, but it's a must have.
I firmly believe that your mindset, it's like your cheerleader in the background. Not only is it your commander, but it's your cheerleaders in the background. But if you take off in the race and then you have something dragging you back, or you have that belief that you can't do it, well, that's only going to weigh you down. You have to have that wholehearted belief that even if you don't know exactly what to do, you're going to show up and you're going to do the necessary steps that you know is going to push you forward, even when there's uncertainty. But if you are diving into the old ways, the things that maybe set you back, whether it's vices or just bad habits, well, then your subconscious, it's the ultimate scorekeeper. So you're going to take off fast, and then your subconscious is going to be like, oh, no, remember, you don't show up like this consistently. You're this person instead of this person. So
wow,
it is a job to get your mindset in order. But the way to do that is to just keep the promises that you make to yourself. And it's not necessarily these big items on the checklist. Now, the big items, they definitely matter, but it's showing up for yourself with the little promises. If you promise that you're going to drink the glass of water before you start the day, if you're going to take the 10-minute walk, if you're going to be in bed by this time, if you're going to brush your teeth twice, make sure you get that second time in. It's just, it all stacks up. And whenever you build that rapport with your subconscious, like, hey, I said that I'm going to do it, therefore I'm going to do it, then you are creating momentum. And then the momentum is going to definitely going to carry through the small things, but the bigger things, well, you got your subconscious on your side then once you've actually stacked up the wins. So
that's good. So is that what the Get Up Gang is all about?
It's a lot of mindset cloaked in just very, very simple action items. But the methodology behind, or the idea behind the Get Up Gang, now the Get Up is the burpee renamed. The burpee is
nice.
Everybody knows what the burpee is. CrossFit has totally demonized the burpee as punishment and just the world's hardest exercise, and just like, oh, everybody wants to not do the burpees. But the Get Up, I've renamed it because, well, it needs rebranding.
I like it.
There's no excuse in the world why you can't do a Get Up. You don't need any equipment. You need very little time. You're moving your body, and you need absolutely nothing else to do the Get Ups. It takes just a few to really feel it. You can transform your body very, very rapidly with the Get Up, and you can do them absolutely every single day. But yes, it's all about just the foundational pillars of transformation. But man, I'm sorry I went off on a tangent.
That's good
question. But so what was the question one more time? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So the Get Up Gang, you're the CEO of the Get Up Gang. So is that what that's all about? Is it about, a healthy mindset that then helps you to achieve goals in other areas? Yeah. And so the first thing you're met with is the Jumpstart transformation, the 21-day deal, but it's not tactics and methods. It's based off of principles, and it's the most simple action items that derive the most value. So if you do these things, like you prioritize animal proteins, you do your few Get Ups during the day, you clean out your intestinal tract, you work on your posture. It's not about being the most jacked, but you will own your body if you do these things day in and day out. And if you keep the promises that you make to yourself, you go through this little transformational program that I've set up, oh man, there's no way that your mindset's not going to follow, because, well, you've shown up for yourself, but you've cleaned the toxins out of your body, you've rid them from the intestinal tract, you have enhanced your posture. So you're standing up taller, you're projecting to the world that you're more powerful, you're more confident, but also that opens up your chest cavity so you can fully utilize the expansion of your lungs. So many folks, they think they have anxiety, but really they just can't catch their breath because they have
less than optimal posture.
Oh,
They're just
wow.
crunched in. Yeah.
That's good.
And then the prioritizing animal proteins, it's so there's a whole lot of like red meat. Meat is just nutritionally dense, and we need our protein to build muscle. And muscle is the driver of our bodies, right? It's the driver of longevity. So prioritizing animal proteins, and then you have your get ups, just a few throughout the day, and hit the minimum number of steps. You have really set the foundation of just an awesome self, and then you can progress from there if you'd like with higher level tactics and methods. But really and truly, you can be in amazing shape if you just follow the 4 steps.
Wow. That's so practical, man. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. So would you consider this to be like one of the best, healthiest, fastest ways to begin to transform your fitness overall?
I'm biased because yes, I've established the system, but I've spoken with several doctors and several other fitness coaches about the 4 steps, and they're like, wow, this truly is the foundation of positive transformation. And every time that I want to transform myself, like if I've fallen off the wagon, I just look at the 4 basics and I'm like, am I doing this? Am I doing this? Am I doing this? But yes, it is, no matter your goal physically, world-class bodybuilder, Olympian, you just want to be a stronger dad, you're going to have, you don't have to do anything, but you want to stand taller, you want to breathe better, you want a clean intestinal tract so you can utilize the nutrients in the good foods. You want more protein, animal proteins, because it's nutritionally dense. And then moving your body, it increases circulation, getting down on the ground and getting back up. Older folks, they have trouble with independence because, well, they just stop moving their body, and their strength to weight ratio, it's skewed, because kids are light, right? They're 50 pounds, 100 pounds, and but strength to weight ratio, because they're always running around playing, it's relatively high. But then as we age, we get injuries, and then we get into just different things, sedentary lifestyle, and therefore we don't have to be as strong as we used to be, especially with all these jobs that are moving into the tech space and working from home. We don't have to be strong anymore. So just getting down on the ground and getting back up, it signals your body to maintain strength. And you have to think of it as a stimulus instead of just like, hey, I'm going to work out. Your body will rid itself of what it does not need. So if it does not need strength, then it will get rid of your strength very, very quickly. So if you can signal to your body just briefly every single day, like, hey, I need to be able to move my body. I need to be able to pick myself up off the ground. It's so powerful. And you don't have to do a million of them. You could literally do it for like 2 minutes a day, 1 minute a day. And you've signaled to your body, hey, this is something that I need, and therefore I'm going to keep it. Because yes, duration and intensity matter, but it's the act of showing up and going through it. Now you don't have to whoop yourself every single day, but if you do something just a few times a day, your body's, it's like like the back of your hand.
Yeah.
So, and the get up is symbolic, because when we get knocked down, we got to get back up. There's so many different things that I've thrown onto the get up with with the language and the mindset around it. But yeah, man, it's absolutely the 4 steps is the place to start.
I love that. I love the simplicity of it. It's memorable, right? This isn't something I got to make sure I have this notebook all, so I can flip through my 100 pages. No, this is simple. It's something anybody can do. I love that.
And I've set it up to where now a lot of coaches, there's a lot of great coaches out there, and they want to dazzle you with the detailed programs, and hey, you're going to hop on this program and then you're going to be this person. But change is the scariest thing for people besides public speaking and death, I would say, and moving. But when people think about uprooting their life, even if their life is is like, like it could be better, it still scares them. So even if they're like, oh, this is the track that's going to take me to the promised land, I'd much rather my clients insert these pillars into their current lifestyle just to warm them up to the change, showing them that, hey, I can do these healthier things within my current lifestyle. And then once they start to see the changes in their bodies from just inserting these things here and there, that's going to create more momentum. And then that's going to change the mindset. And then we can attack the bad habits. Far too often, people want to change 10 things at one time because they're motivated. And if they can, that's fantastic. Yeah. But I know that me personally, I'm a simple guy. I'm going to have to change one thing at the time for the most part. And and if you can just focus on one thing at the time and get it down pat, you're going to accelerate so much faster if you just do one thing at the time than if you try to take on 10 things at once.
I think that kind of focus or a lack of that kind of focus is the reason so many people don't achieve their goals. They're trying to do too many things at once. You can try to do 10 things and get nothing done, or you can focus on one and see movement.
That's the way it goes, is once you own this, then you could go get something else. But trying to hold too many eggs in your basket, trying to wear too many hats, it becomes overwhelming. And that's when you backslide to the old ways. Yeah. And maybe even past the old ways. Maybe you're going 2 or 3 levels back when you slide off. So
that's good.
The old ways are way too comfortable.
It's true. Well, what do you think holds people back, or at least the majority of people back, from getting what they really, truly want?
One is the stories that they tell themselves. Hey, I'm this way, and I like to do these things. I'm not good at this. That holds them back. Yeah. And then it's showing up as other people see them. They listen to other people's stories, and therefore, I know it sounds weird, they don't want to let other people down. So they're going to continue to show up like they've always shown up. And I don't know if you've ever had anybody tell you, hey, you've changed. Well, for the most part, when people say, hey, you've changed, it's not in a positive sense. Even if you are making positive changes in your life, that means to them, you are different than what I know of you. And listen, it's important to seek wise counsel. It really, really is. I think it's said in the Bible 16 to 18 times. But you can't, if they're not wise counsel, you don't need to listen to them. And for people, it's like the bucket of crabs. You know, if a crab's trying to make an escape out of a bucket, the other crab's going to pull them back down. So very few people, I mean, I hate to say it because I wish people have the best intentions at heart, and they want the best for everybody else, but they want everybody to stay the same as they know it for the most part. So that's good. Yeah, and they don't want change in their lives, and they don't want to see you change because they need you to show up like this.
You know, it's true. Opinions are like noses. I mean, everybody's got one, right? And it does not mean that they're all created equal. And learning to discern and distinguish between what you need to listen to and what you need to discard can be a challenge. I mean, sometimes we really struggle there. What I often tell people is you have to eat the fish and you have to leave the bones, right? Don't eat the bones. It's not going to help you, right? But you got to be able to determine what's fish and what's bones. And that comes from that healthy mindset that we both know matters so incredibly much. So thinking about this growth process, like how important is having a mentor in the process that you're describing?
Well, I'd say that it's extremely important to have mentors in your life. They might not always be available, but a mentor or a master, they will allow you to leapfrog in a space, because if you can get one on your side and they tell you the secrets that they know, because every industry, everything has its own language. And then in their space, that top percentile of achievers, they have their own language from everyone else in that space.
Mm-hmm.
So it just depends on how fast you want to accelerate.
Yeah.
But it can be a challenge sometimes to get a mentor. But I just posted about the master key, and the master key in terms of getting a mentor, or at least getting, or seeking wise counsel, is asking for people's professional opinions on a matter. Because asking someone their professional opinion, you're basically giving them a pass to pass judgment, or to give an opinion. And everybody loves to give their opinion, right?
Yeah, they do.
If you can get them to give you their professional opinion, more than likely, if they're human, which they probably are, they're going to level with you. And if you can continue to ask penetrating questions about their opinion, well, you're well on your way to getting a mentor, because they're going to be like, this person's hungry in the space. And especially if you can provide value to them without them asking you to provide value, if you find something that they need, then, and you can fulfill that without them ever asking, that's how you really, really hook a mentor. Because one, I've had a lot of great mentors in my life. Very few people actually ask them their opinion on things. And if they do, those people go about it in a completely wrong way. They're like, gimme. Yeah. And definitely you gotta replenish the well, maybe even overgive before you ever receive. So, me personally, I've always wanted to accelerate as fast as I could, because if I had something in my mind, I wanted to know about it, and I wanted to know how the best did it. And I would pay anything that that was possible to learn the language, to learn the leverage points within a space. So to me, yes, getting a mentor is extremely important. Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you replenish the well? Like, is that something that you have to be intentional about, or does that just naturally happen? Well,
I've used the phrase replenish the well for most of my life. And yes, you do need to be intentional about it. It comes naturally to me. At the same time, I still have to think about, how am I going to come through for this individual that's pouring into me? So if it's not natural for you to pour into people or overgive, then you're really going to have to focus on it. But yes, the customization of how you replenish the well matters, because if you're trying to replenish the well in ways that it doesn't need replenishing, because the well is multifaceted. And if you can replenish the well in a way that it's never been replenished before, you've just hit a new level. And then you've gone from there, just your mentor, to like, you've got an advocate for you in the space now. Like they're your buddy. Like So just, you do have to be creative, and you have to pay attention to the people that you're with. And you're not going to be able to do this for hundreds of people at the time. Really, it's got to be super intimate, and not in a sexual sense, but yeah, like you're really bonding with the person. So replenishing the well, that's a standard in my household. You got to do it. But it just shows appreciation. And I'm always one to try to overgive.
Josh, how do you stay on top of your game? Like, you're a leader of leaders. You build into other leaders to help them get better. How do you stay on top of your own game so that you can do that?
I'm pretty crazy about my word and how I show up. And I'm not perfect by any means. Very, very far from it. But I tell myself, if I say it, then I'm going to do it. That's how I show up. And like, there is no other option for me. Like, it may take a little bit longer, than, because I overpromised. I try not to overpromise and underdeliver. But if I can't do it, then like I'm probably almost dead. And so it's just how do I stay on top of it? I don't know. It's just the promises that I make, and I try to be as true to my word as absolutely possible. And it's really just, again, you're building rapport with yourself, and you could never outrun bad rapport within the community. What do they call that? Your
reputation?
track record, your
reputation.
Your reputation. Yes, my mind drew a blank there, but you'll never be able to outrun a bad reputation. You can't outwork a bad reputation, and bad news travels 10 times faster than good news travels.
Yeah.
So if you start getting a bad rap, people are going to be like, no, don't work with that guy. But if you've left someone with good experience, then they might not necessarily refer you right now, but down the road, then they're like, I know a solid guy that they kept you in the back of their minds. So yeah, you're building that reputation with yourself. You're building that reputation out in the community. And even though I might say some off-colored things or do some off-colored things, if I say it, I'm going to show up. Like I said, I was going to show up because reputation is everything.
Yeah, absolutely. You're an entrepreneur, and so many of the people listening to this show are entrepreneurs. They're entrepreneurs or founders in the agency space. They're business leaders. As an entrepreneur, like as you think about your business and where you want to go from here, is there one thing that stands out, like one thing that you want the most going forward?
In my business, or what I think the most important for business and entrepreneurs?
No, for yours. And I ask that as a personal question because I think it's important for people to understand that this looks different for different people. Mm-hmm. But every one of us needs to have that North Star, that thing that we're aiming at.
Well, so I'm making the transition from real estate sales into the online coaching space. And even though I've been a coach for the last 20 years, I'm really honing in my message and then the end user experience for how one would go through and experience my teachings and coaching. Yeah. So I'm working on it with everything that I have, but yeah, just really hone in my message, get very, very clear, have clear calls to actions, and be able to verbalize and clearly display like how I'm going to provide value to my prospects, to my end users. And I think so many times when it comes to communication, we might try to over communicate things. Yeah. So we try to squeeze in way too much when we only have just a few seconds to grab someone's attention and display that value. So yeah, going forward, that's what I'm doing, is I'm really honing in my message and clarifying the roadmap for my clientele. So
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's my steps right now.
What are some of the challenges that you have faced? It's easy for people to listen to a show like this and hear about your journey and your track record and think, oh, wow, it must just have been up and to the right. Like he must have never really had the challenges that I'm having. Can you speak to that? Can you speak to some of the challenges that you faced in the entrepreneurial space? Oh,
absolutely. It's that number one is the chatter in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Because you can have the best mindset, but in times of building a business, you're going to have highs and then you're going to have lows. And then those low times, I'm not saying be absurd with, how positive you are, but you can beat yourself up and feel unworthy at times.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge is always going to be mindset. But you have to be able to embrace discomfort in this entrepreneurial space, because businesses fizzle out very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's because people give up way too soon. And listen, I could have spit out money, but everybody has a money problem. Like everybody has a money problem. So that's not unique. And mindset problems aren't unique either. But there's a book, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And he was a survivor of the Holocaust. And he chose, when he was in the concentration camps, he realized very quickly that he could choose his thoughts. He was the master of his thoughts. Even though the worst was going on around him, he was a master of of what he was thinking and his experience, even though like the absolute worst was happening around him. And I think back about, what Viktor Frankl was going through, and I'm like, wow, I'm in a 3-bedroom townhouse that's set up for performance, and I could go, eat good food and go take a nap if I wanted to. It's not that bad. So creating those monsters within my head of like, oh my God, if I don't make a sale today, right, then we're doomed. Well, it's not necessarily like that. Now, definitely need to put the pedal to the metal and create more sales and provide more value to the people. But yeah, it's the monsters we create in our heads, and then just how we deal with them.
One question that I ask all of my guests is that, typically people who are high performing in their spaces like you are, they're continual learners, right? And one way that we continue to learn from other people is by reading. And so I ask, is there a book that has made a big difference in your journey? It may be the Frankl book that you've already mentioned. Is there one that you would say, hey, if you can only put one book on your to read list this month, this is the one I would recommend?
Oh man, yeah, the Viktor Frankl Man's Search for Meaning, that will change you. You'll cry if you haven't cried in a while. And I'm a crier, like I cry, but you're just like, wow, this guy, he saw the worst, but he chose the high road, even though that people were dropping like flies around him. And like his purpose was, he said that he was going to have to go tell people what he experienced and what he learned. And that's what drove him to survive. Yeah. So, and if you can keep a positive mindset in that type of situation, that's crazy. Like, and just hearing that and then thinking about your problems, it's like, wow, like I am being a wimp right now.
That's good, man. That's
really not to minimize anybody's problems, because there's a lot of people have bad problems out there, but in terms of Holocaust concentration camp,
right,
there's very few people that can, be on that same playing field.
Well, that's a great perspective. It helps us to gain perspective by thinking, wait a minute, like, is this really the worst thing that could be happening to me right now? Hang on. What do I have to be grateful for? And this is one of the ways that I coach clients around mindset, is helping them to learn to identify and celebrate their wins. If you can retrain your brain to do that, man, that will change everything in your life over time.
I love that. Yeah, gratitude is a massive accelerator. Giving thanks for what you currently have, but also giving thanks to the lessons from the losses that you learned in life.
Yes.
And because a loss isn't a loss if you took a lesson from it. Losses are some of the best teachers that you'll ever have. It hurts during that time, but if you can take a lesson from it and not repeat the bad habits that maybe led to that loss, then it's actually a huge win. God willing, you have more time on this earth. And then if you share the lesson that you learned from that specific circumstance, then you're impacting others as well.
That's right. So well said. Typically people walk away from an episode like this, Josh, with one big idea. If you could define that one thing you want people to take away from this, what would you want that to be?
It's really just start listening to yourself, how you're talking to yourself, and the stories that you repeat to yourself, because all too often we keep ourselves in a frame, because we're repeating these traumatic stories over and over and over, and never really coming to a resolution or a lesson learned from those traumatic experiences. So really just looking at it from a bird's eye view. It might sound crazy to try to talk to yourself in your head or analyze your thoughts, but analyze your language, really review the stories that you're telling yourself, and then ask yourself, hey, what's the end goal here? Why am I choosing to repeat that story? Like, is that serving me right now? And more than likely it's not. So, and a method that I have for combating those stories that we repeat to ourselves is you got to break out the journal. And listen, if it's a 10-minute story that you tell yourself, or a 5-minute story, because we get through it pretty quick. You need to break out that journal, slap an hour on the microwave, and just write about it in extreme detail for an hour. Just really just get into every nook and cranny that you can. And then you're tired of talking about it for that hour. And then maybe within that hour, you have key takeaways, or maybe at the end of the hour, like, you have to say, okay, this is what I've learned, and this is what I'm thankful for, because this has taught me this, and now I'm a stronger person, more wise person because of it. But you have to go and you have to face that story, and you have to take those takeaways from it, because if that story just keeps spinning in your head, you're just reliving those negative emotions. So you're just spiraling down, you're drowning in those emotions. And that's really what those stories are doing to you. So just stop reliving the traumas. I know that was a long answer, but yeah.
No, that's good. It's solid, man. I think that's spot on.
Awesome.
Josh, this has been such a great conversation. I know people are going to want to stay connected to you and continue to learn from you. How can they do that?
Just go to my website, thejoshparish.com. It has all my social media on there, and it has a direct link to the Get Up Gang community. And that's a free community, health and fitness community, where I've got the Jumpstart Challenge. It's got a lot of different nutritional tips and hacks and mindset hacks. And just I post on there every single day. We've got neat challenges, and it's a fun group. So just go on thejoshparish.com, and you'll be able to hit the link and go directly to it, and you'll be informed and entertained. I think so.
Love that, man. I love that. Thank you for being so generous today in sharing from the wisdom and insights that you've gained so far in your journey. Really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me on the show. You've been a great host.
Thanks for joining me for this episode today. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, if you don't have a copy of my newest book, Catalytic Leadership, I'd love to put a copy in your hands. If you go to catalyticleadershipbook.com, you can get a copy for free. Just pay the shipping so I can get it to you, and we'll get one right out. My goal is to put this into the hands of as many leaders as possible. This book captures principles that I've learned in 20 plus years of coaching leaders in the entrepreneurial space, in business, government, nonprofits, education, and the local church. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take a next step with a coach to help you intentionally grow and thrive as a leader, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to catalyticleadership.net to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, leaders, choose to be catalytic.
Thanks for listening to Catalytic Leadership with Dr. William Attaway. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. Want more? Go to catalyticleadership.net.